Good evening, everyone. We'll call to order the regular planning commission meetings for September 12th, City of Fairview at 7 p.m. We'll start with a prayer and pledge. Just join me. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will move into item 2, approval of the agenda. We have 2 items we want to try and add on there into new business. Item 7.3, a recommendation of proposed plan of services to accompany resolution 1817, a resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed annexation of territory into the city of Fairview by owner consent and approving a plan of services 7312 Taylor Road, requested by Kenny Taylor. And then I have an item 7.4, which is a nominating and voting on a second secretary. Any other items? I entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll go into item 3, citizens' comments.
We have none tonight.
No citizens' comments. Item 4, approval of the August 8th, 2017 meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
A motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Move into item 5, bonds, 5.1. The Meeting Place Church site performance bond in the amount of $22,000 to cover storm drainage and other improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the bond at the June 9th, 2015 meeting. The bond expires September 15, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, the site is currently unfinished. We have not received a renewed bond, and as you mentioned, it does expire this Friday. You have some photos with the tag item 5.1 on there that show the state of the site. They have a handful of things they really need to fix, mostly in the form of drainage, erosion control. It's just in a pretty rough state. And we had received a letter from the bank indicating that they did not plan to renew the bond. I reached out to them and stated that it really was not finished out and that the city would go ahead and call the bond if they did not renew it by Friday. The pastor was unable to be here tonight, but he did send me a message about 6 o'clock stating that they will have it renewed by Friday.
So they were notified.
Yes.
I make a motion to call the bond, if not renewed, by September the 15th.
Second.
We have first and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, bonds, item 5.2, Hickory Springs subdivision, irrevocable letter of credit bond in the amount of $43,750 to cover the proposed sidewalk and drainage ditch improvements. Planning Commission set the bond on September 9, 2014. Bond expires September 18, 2017. Ms. Costanza.
Mr. Chairman, the developer was contacted and he brought in the renewed bond today.
No action needed on that one.
No action needed.
What's the expiration date on that bond?
I don't have it in front of me, but it should be a year from now.
It is.
All right, item 5.3, Deer Valley Downs subdivision Phase 3, performance bond in the amount of $250,000 to cover the road, sidewalks, storm drainage, and improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the bond at the October 13, 2015 meeting. Bond will expire September 30th, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, this developer was contacted as well and asked the city to reduce his bond. On his behalf, we did have the city engineer go out and perform a site inspection, which actually happened today. His recommendation is attached in the email. There is a substantial amount of work that has been completed, so he recommends that a reduced bond be put into place at the amount of $47,500.
Would that be in the form of performance bond or a maintenance bond?
It would still be a performance bond.
Any additional questions?
How did he come up with 47,500?
He looks at what the remainder of the work is estimated to be at, and then he adds a required 25% markup of the estimated remaining construction costs, which is what our subdivision regulations requires.
He being our city engineer. Will Owen.
I'll make a motion to reduce the performance bond to $47,500 as our engineer recommends.
I second that.
A first and a second, any discussion? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins did. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Any-
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Item 5.4, Leverett Meadows subdivision, performance bond in the amount of $14,000 to cover road, sidewalk, storm drainage, and improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission reduced the bond on the sidewalk portion only to $11,500 on January 13, 2015. Planning Commission voted to reduce the bond on August 11, 2015 to $7,500. Planning Commission voted to reduce the maintenance bond on September 13, 2016 to $3,600. Bond will expire October 1st, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, this developer was also contacted and has asked that the maintenance bond, which has been in place for a year, be released, which is our standard subdivision acceptance process. City engineer went out today, did his site inspection, and recommends that the planning commission make a positive recommendation to the board of commissioners to begin the formal process of subdivision acceptance, which would eventually release the bond. They will have to submit as-built drawings as part of that process, which I will contact them probably tomorrow regarding that.
Now, was this the same neighborhood that had the issues with the paving of the road? Is that the one? And has that been resolved?
Mr. Owen indicated that everything was done to his satisfaction and matches what the approved plans state. So-
Okay, at some point, there was liens on the owner's house because the paving of the road, something, do y'all know, I'll remember all the details?
I think that was because he needed the bond reduced here to pay for the paving, and that was done way back.
But he did perform the paving.
The paving was performed. I don't know if the bill was paid, but I know the paving was performed.
It seems that the planning commission voted to reduce the bond a couple times, and then it went down to a maintenance bond. So that shouldn't have happened if the paving hadn't been completed, and that was September 13th. So probably a year ago, the paving was completed. I can check with him, though, tomorrow.
At what point do you change it to a maintenance bond?
When it should be per the subdivision regulations, and it hasn't always been this way in the past, it seems. It should be when all of the improvements have been completed. And then the engineer will go out, check that everything has been completed in the site inspection, compare it to the approved site plan, and then if he feels that all of the improvements have been done satisfactorily, they will vote, you should vote to do a maintenance bond, which lasts for 1 year, and it's just so that if there's anything that fails, you have some paving fails, sidewalk cracks, storm drain breaks, something like that, that they have a little bit of money in the pot to make those maintenance.
Is there a percentage
Upgrades.
of his original bond that goes to that?
Usually, it shouldn't be less than 25% of the original.
Thank
You know, I kind of feel like the motion needs to be based on you finding out the answers, because we were contacted by citizens that had liens in their house because the builder, was not paying. Obviously, it's done, but just if you could get the background and make sure that,
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to accept the engineer's recommendations to release the bond after the city confirms the fact that the liens were released and there's no more obligations that need to be done.
We have a motion?
That was my motion.
I'll second that.
First and a second. Any additional discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we'll move into item 7, new business. Item 7.1 will be rezoning of property requested by Chris Mangrum, property located at the terminus of Black Pine Road and known as part of Parcel 6, Evergreen Industrial Park, tax map 18, parcel 47.27, 6.97 acres, current zoning district industrial general, requested zoning district RS40, single-family residential, parcel owned by Chris Mangrum.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you just a little bit of background. This is a roughly 7-acre parcel. It was about a 12-acre parcel with the piece that is known as 47.25 to the left. It used to be parcel 6 of the Evergreen Industrial Park, and it wrapped around Evergreen Lake. Mr. Mangrum and his wife bought that piece there, which is 6.97 acres, and the piece directly north of that, which is actually located in the county. But those two parcels were being sold together by a current citizen, and he bought them for the purpose of building a single-family residential house for his family. The parcel is zoned industrial general, and it was under the covenants and restrictions of the industrial park, which restricted the use of those parcels to industrial uses like assembly, processing. In working with the city, he went before the Board of Commissioners last month and requested a waiver from those restricted uses such that he could go through the rezoning process and apply to rezone it to RS40 so he could build a house. The Board of Commissioners voted to waive the restrictions, and so we are here tonight. That site has a lot of topography issues, which makes it really unsuitable for industrial, and it's a nice wooded site that borders a lake, so he would like to build his house there. Based on the previous Board of Commissioners vote, it's staff's opinion that this should be a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to rezone the property from industrial general to RS40. And the applicant, Mr. Mangrum, is here if you have any questions.
Any questions?
My only question on this is one thing. This property one time before came before the Board of Commissioners, and they would not let it be rezoned. And so are we being fair to the people that they wouldn't be rezoned for now? It comes up and we're gonna rezone it for somebody else. It really doesn't make me any difference one way or the other, but for continuity, I mean, how can we tell one person, how can the board tell one person they won't and the next person? I mean, I want to explain to me why
Sure.
that the change in heart over 2 or 3 years.
I can give you some backstory. What happened previously was the last owner, who Mr. Mangrum bought the property from, Ms. Fagan, she, rather than asking for a waiver, which is stated that the Board of Commissioners has the authority to enter into on a piece of property, she tried to get that piece of property vacated from the subdivision. And to do that, you have to get the signatures of all of the other parcels in the subdivision. She was able to get the signatures of all but one, and that 24th owner lived in Florida and she never got a response. So it never got past the Board of Commissioners level to even get to the rezoning process. And when Mr. Mangrum came to me and we were reading through the covenants, it very distinctly states that you can ask for a waiver from the BOC. And so that process happened. Surely if she had taken upon herself to ask for the waiver, she probably could have had it, had the uses waived and could have gotten the property rezoned, but she didn't do that, so.
Okay.
Any additional questions?
Where is the road access to this?
Black Pine goes almost, you can see on the, Black Pine is on the right side of the lake,
Okay.
and it ends shortly before you get to that lot line, and then there's a gravel road that goes to the property line. So that's part of the reason that this property never was developed industrially, because the plat shows that Black Pine was supposed to be extended further in the past, and it never happened. So I think that's just another reason it made it unsuitable for industrial uses.
Who's gonna pay for the expense of extending that road?
He's just gonna use the gravel access as it is.
They will continue to use the gravel
Yeah.
instead of asphalting that section?
That's what he indicated to me. It's wide, I mean, it's a usable gravel road, so,
Not very aesthetic, though. But
well, if you go out there, you're kind of in the middle of the woods.
I've been out there at a fishing
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask Mr. Mangrum if you want.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. I mean, you build a house today, and then 5 years later, come back and want the city to extend that road because it's city property now. It's a part of Bowie Park or part of the city park system. So,
Mr. Mangrum, if I could get you to just come up to this podium, please.
It's about 3/4 of a mile long. It was all gravel. My wife, where she grew up, it's the same. I had no intentions of, asking anyone to pave it, and if I need to put that in writing for this to go through, I have no problem with that. It's a pretty well beat down gravel path. Once you pass through, like where the woods are, that little yellow line where it hits the trees. I mean, it's pretty nice.
but over time, I mean, gravel roads gotta have continuous maintenance.
Right.
And so, who's gonna be responsible for that? To me, I'd want that put in writing that the city's not gonna have to come in there and put some chip and run or something in there.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, whatever you guys want to do. I mean,
I just-
I got a tractor, I can put gravel down. That's not a problem. The only portion, I guess that, just make sure that I'm understanding correctly. You're talking about just from where the pavement ends right there in front of the pond?
Till you get to your property, yes.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure the city's gonna be dumping gravel in there anyway, because people come all the time.
Well, to me, that ought to be worked out, because actually, if you do dump gravel and grade it, then you're grading on city property.
Correct.
And
I
so
was
you'd
mis-
want-
I misunderstood
You'd want
you.
a permission slip to do that, as well as us not wanting to have to do it ourselves, so.
Right, I misunderstood you. I thought you were talking about like where it crosses into my property. Sorry for that.
Right, I'm thinking the end of the city road to your property is what I'm talking.
Yeah, I mean, I got no problem with the way it is right now.
Okay.
And if we need to write,
And
if I
get
put it,
permission from the city to keep it, the betterment and improvement of it over time.
yeah, that's fine. Whatever you guys want to do.
That's what I see. I mean, I just don't want to come back in 5 years and say, it's a mess and I can't get to my property and it's your property to maintain, and then the city has to go spend some money.
I think the city too hopes for some improvements on that site eventually one day too, so it might end up getting paid by the city one day, or, who knows, so.
That's not a problem for me.
Any additional questions?
Does the road end right there at the yellow line?
No, it ends about where the end of the RD is.
And that's what I'm saying. So from the end of the RD over to the yellow line, that's a city park? Do we need, does the city need to give him an easement to be able to go through? I mean, you can't go down here and put a road through Bowie Park to go to your house.
Yeah, ingress and egress, you would need a
So I think there would be an easement from that Black Pine Road to where it's supposed to go all the way to lot 6?
There is.
Yes.
It was actually supposed to be paved by the city all the way to the property line, as shown on the plat. It just never happened for some reason. The city never paid. It was supposed to be a 6-foot right-of-way all the way to the property line. So,
Chairman. It's currently a city road already, and the city's already responsible for maintaining that road, even if it is gravel, up to the end of it. So no matter what use it's for, we have an obligation to maintain it, because it is part of the park, because you'll have to share that obviously with people. If they're fishing up there, they wanna pull up there and pull off, and we have to maintain it. It's our property. We don't really have an option.
Is there a recorded road right away all the way up to the edge of his property?
yes,
So he has legal?
yes. It's on the plat, which is in your packet.
I mean, if I may, I'm of the opinion that if that road isn't your property, you shouldn't be responsible for maintaining that little portion of road. I mean, I think we should be responsible for that. I don't know why it wasn't paved, but I don't think it matters. You know, I don't think you should be taking your own time and money to throw gravel down there with your tractor. That's not your job, man.
That plat that you're looking at now shows it better than the one that's in your packet, I believe. You can see how it was supposed to go the length of the property. It just never, just didn't finish it out, so.
Any additional questions? Or any motions?
I'll go ahead and make the motion to have the property rezoned from industrial general to RS40 single-family residential.
Second.
First and a second, any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Magrum. Item 7.2, new business, rezoning of property requested by Janae Ficken, properly located at the intersection of Highway 96 North and Loblolly Pine, and known as Parcel 21, Evergreen Industrial Park, tax map 18, parcel 47.09, 3 acres, current zoning district, industrial general, requested zoning district, commercial general, parcel owned by Luke and Janae Ficken.
Chairman, this is a similar situation to the previous one. The Fickens purchased the 3-acre parcel. It's located at the corner of Loblolly and Highway 96, so it's across from the mini storage, mini warehouse operation. It's been sitting vacant for over 20 years, never was developed industrially. And she and her family bought it with the hope of using it commercially to build a family-owned gym and potential retail space in the future. It does front 96, so it is on the main entrance corridor, to the city of Fairview. So it's staff's opinion that it would be a higher and better use for that parcel to be used commercially, be a little bit more attractive for people traveling through on their way into the city. All of the property north up to the interstate is zoned commercial general. And so she is asking that this parcel go from industrial general to commercial general. And similarly, she went before the Board of Commissioners last month and also requested the waiver from the restricted uses, industrial uses, so that she could apply for commercial zoning. And she did get a unanimous of that request. And Ms. Ficken is also here tonight if you have any questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question of our city attorney. Our vice chairperson noticed something when we were getting ready to start the meeting. If you look at the executor's deed for this property, it was actually deeded to 3 separate couples. And we only have one of Ms. Ficken here for representing one couple. Do we need some kind of documentation from the other 2 couples that are each a third owner of this piece of property before we go forward? Some kind of
Is it deeded?
authorization?
Is it deeded to all of them as tenants in common?
Yes, each get a 1/3 undivided interest for them, their successors, heirs, assigns as tenants in common.
So that would be the applicant's parents, if that makes any difference.
They're all related.
And I'm sure they are, but just to make sure we have a nice, clean record.
Are they, they're alive, are they alive, and are they
Yes, my parents and my in-laws. Yes, they're all here in Fairview.
in agreement with this?
Yes.
I mean, I think, in answer to your question, Commissioner, that they could, you know, they could come into the city planner's office and indicate in writing that they're in agreement with this request.
Okay.
That would be sufficient.
Just so we cover our basis of if a big what-if happened and we just have it covered, I think that'd be perfect.
Very good request.
Well, and for the record, her dad was at the Board of Commissioners meeting. I don't know that your in-laws were, but you did have 2 out of the 3 present.
Any additional questions?
Okay.
Entertain motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning of this property from IG to CG, Commercial General.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any additional discussion?
I'd like to go ahead and make sure that we got it on there that they were coming in, not just verbally, but in the amendment.
Well, we could, what do you want to call it?
You could ask to amend your motion that they come in and sign a notice of consent to this request.
Okay. And that they provide a note of consent for the request of the rezoning.
Seconded the motion.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Figgin. All right, item 7.3, recommendation on a proposed plan of services to accompany Resolution 1817, a resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed annexation of territory into the city of Fairview by owner consent and approved a plan of services, 7312 Taylor Road, requested by Kenny Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, this was an item that came before the Board of Commissioners last Thursday, and it was voted 5-0 to send this plan of services to the Planning Commission. Mr. Taylor lives at 7312, which is the property that you see on the screen, and as you can see, it's bisected. He's got 8.8 acres, and his property is bisected by the county line. So 3.3 acres, the northern 3.3 are in the city, the southern 5.5 are in the county. And he's just asking that the 5.5 that are in the county be brought into the city so that the entirety of his land is located within the city. As such, the state legislature spells out the steps that you have to take as far as annexation. It goes before the Board of Commissioners. They vote whether they want to entertain a public hearing on this. That's what happened last Thursday. They did vote to send it to a public hearing, and before it gets to the public hearing, we draft up a plan of services, which is in your packet, and it's Resolution 1817. It's a very standard resolution that states how city services will be provided to that new piece of property. Water, sewer, of course, those are not services that the city provides because they're done through the Water Authority of Dixon County, but it's just your standard plan of services, and that's what you have before you tonight. With this being such a small piece of property and the contiguous nature of the property, I mean, being the same property owner, having its property being in the city and the county, staff recommends that this be voted to send a favorable recommendation back to the Board of Commissioners. And Mr. Kenny Taylor is here if you have any questions.
So the current in-city zoning would be RS40?
It would come in as RS40, yes. which is what all of the surrounding properties also zoned.
Mr. Burks?
When we were before the Board of Commissioners on this issue, Mr. Taylor stated that the bottom of his property that's in the county was actually a right-of-way that belonged to the city. Do we know if that's accurate or not?
Before the meeting, he and I discussed, he was confused because that was part of that last Otter Creek-related request for annexation that did not pass. So he was just confused that that was actually annexed when it was not.
Okay.
But part of this property was shown on that subdivision plat.
It was to allow a 60-foot road to go through, which would have been the second access point for, to Taylor Road. But that project has pretty much died. So.
But it was just for the access road. The owner
Right.
did not, the one that came before us did not and does not own the property. Mr. Taylor owns it.
Right, Mr. Taylor owns that whole property.
Additional questions?
Are there any negative effects by going ahead and doing this? Anything for the city that we should be aware of?
No, I mean, not in staff's opinion. I mean, I think this is probably the most straightforward request for an annexation that we could probably get.
Thank you.
Well, and I did question in the Board of Commissioners and wanted to make sure that the board did realize that this was tied in with that property. And even though it wasn't, and worried about any legal ramifications, for us to annex this one and not that one, and the city attorney explained, and I'm gonna let him explain it again, just to, for the record.
Madam Mayor, what I recall you asking me is whether or not we would have any kind of equal protection argument by allowing this annexation. In my opinion, that I gave at the Board of Commissioners meeting was that this is an in rem request, meaning all property annexations are unique. And unless you are not making the decision to allow an annexation for someone based on some immutable characteristic, like maybe they're Islamic or they're African American, that is not something that I think that they're different. Every piece of land is different. So cities have the prerogative to allow an annexation here and not allow it here. Every annexation is going to change the border of your town.
And for the record, the board did say that they felt like this was justifiable to them because it is one property owner wanting their property rezoned and bringing it into the city. So, just for the record.
I've got one question on the property description. It says being a parcel of land located in the First Civil District of Hickman County. Can we annex Hickman County?
Where does it say?
So that Cumberland survey page where it just has a
And it's,
breakdown.
and it's recorded in Centerville. So is it in Williamson County or Hickman County?
No, it's definitely in Williamson County.
Yeah.
I think that's just a typo that somebody maybe forgot to remove some information on a,
Well, they wouldn't have
Copy-paste.
they wouldn't have recorded it in Centerville if it'd been a typo. They would have recorded it in Franklin.
absolutely, but the deed has Williamson County.
Yeah, I was gonna say the survey down at the bottom does say Williamson County on it.
And that description might have just been submitted by
Oh,
the
yeah,
the
that's-
applicant.
Right.
Is there any way to clean that up to make sure it's as it should be?
Is he talking about this?
So I don't think it would be any kind of official document into our record.
Where are you looking for that? Or where did you find that?
It's on the page, it says property description on the top left and Cumberland survey on the top right.
That's the address of the people who did the survey.
But it says being a parcel of land located
right
in the
here.
First Civil District of Hickman County is the first sentence.
Surveyor who prepared the actual survey incorrectly cited Hickman County. I mean, the plat, as you can see, that was recorded in, I mean, it shows that the next sheet shows that it was recorded in Williamson County. So we can, we can have Cumberland Survey just change the property description. That's just something that we asked them to submit as part of that, as part of the application.
Yeah, Mr. Gibbs, actually, his office is in Hickman County, so that may have,
Probably just oversight.
Good catch up.
Yeah.
I can call him tomorrow and make sure that he changes that.
Any additional questions?
I guess my other question would be, why would you want to pay city taxes on 5 acres? Is it gonna be developed? I mean, is there a plan with this property, or is it just,
I mean, we can have Mr. Taylor come up. He indicated that, the property is for sale, but he's hoping that, his children
Okay.
his children will buy it.
Okay.
Even if it were to be developed, I mean, it's 5 acres. You couldn't have more than 5 houses on it with the zoning. So there's no plan for, development that I'm aware of. But you can have Mr. Taylor come up if you want to ask him.
Mr. Taylor, you have any comments or thoughts?
Good evening. Yes, sir, I'd just like to have the convenience of it being in the city for the fire protection, the water and the sewer in the future.
okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
And right now, we're voting for a public hearing only? That's all we do, isn't it?
No, this board doesn't conduct the public hearing. You just vote to
For the
send a,
resolution? for the
you just
public
vote you send a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners on the annexation and the plan of service, that's all. And then it would go to the Board of Commissioners for a public hearing.
And with something that's kind of new, that she has explained, I don't know if it was in the planning commission or maybe a board of commissioners, the process now, to be annexed in is a lot lengthier. So there's a lot of going to this board, you come back, got to go back to the board. So, time they get done, it's going to be a couple months process, and will we see it one more time here? Or I know the board will see it 2 more.
It'll go back to the board, that's it.
Okay, so, anyway, it's just now part of the new laws and how we have to do it.
The annexation laws have been amended repeatedly over the last few years. There was a moratorium completely on annexation for a while, and then the General Assembly rewrote the annexation laws. There's no more annexation in Tennessee by ordinance, period. You can do it by referendum, or you can do it by agreement,
Okay.
by consent of a property owner, which is what's happening here, albeit when you do it, there's now a bunch of steps you've got to go through. You've got to have a plan of services. It's got to go through your planning commission. There's got to be a public hearing on the plan of services. It's got to be published. So we've got to do all those steps, even just to do an annexation by agreement, which years ago, annexation by agreement was a pretty simple process. You just get in a written agreement with the property owner, you can do it by ordinance, and it's pretty quick. But it's not as easy anymore.
Questions or thoughts?
Make a motion for a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
A second.
I'll second.
First and a second. Mr. Jenkins, second. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Cali, seconded.
Oh, my apologies, Mr. Cali.
All right.
Mr. Cali seconded. All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, item 7.4, at the last month meeting, we did adding a vice chairman. We forgot the second secretary spot was also open, so tonight we've added the second secretary. So I'll entertain any nominations for that second secretary position. And there really isn't necessarily too many responsibilities. We have a first secretary, the chairman and the first secretary sign the plat. If the first secretary was unavailable to sign the plat, the secretary would sign it. And that's about the,
I'll volunteer for that.
we have volunteer over here.
Great.
I nominate the volunteer.
So, Mr. Anderson, we have a nomination. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additional nominations? So all in favor of making Mr. Anderson the second secretary?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we will go into reports and discussion. Item 8.1, city planner, Ms. Costanza.
I don't really have anything tonight, other than the majority of the new members, which is almost the whole board. There should be Planning Commissioner Handbook, which covers a lot of the pertinent roles, responsibilities of being on the Planning Commission. It's just good, helpful background. And between myself, the city engineer, and the city manager, we're working on getting that first training session put together for you. That's all I have.
Thank you for all the information tonight and presenting it and everything that helps us be more clear on everything. No city engineer, city attorney, Mr. Potter.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would say is there's some new members, and some of you have not gotten to know yet, but if you have any questions for me at any time, feel free to just call me directly. I'd be glad to help you, so.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, communication from the planning commission members, Ms. Slaughter.
The tree commission wants to make sure that we have the opportunity to suggest some information into the design codes book that's in process. There are some things regarding maintenance of plants and perpetuity of that for businesses that we want to make sure is put into, is considered for the codes.
Excellent. I think when that time comes, we're all gonna try and have, all parties involved, park board, or tree board, anyone, to try and have some input on it, so that'd be excellent.
Thank you.
Mr. Mangrum?
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Anderson?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Powers?
Have nothing.
Mr. Cali?
Thursday, the industrial board is having a meet and greet with the new state people that are in place for bringing industry to the, different parts of Tennessee. It's at 6:30 on Thursday, so if anybody can make it, it'd be a good thing. These are the new guys. They're going to be bringing industry to this area, so.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Burks?
I have nothing tonight.
Dinkins?
Thank you, Ms. Costanzo, for these awesome binders. Do you have any update on the builders work session as well that we discussed last month?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Collins brought up a builders work session that was going to be happening.
Oh, right, I know that we have compiled the database, and I think there's plans in the works. I don't think we've actually secured a date yet.
Okay.
So I think it got pushed out a little bit just because of some of the more pressing issues that we've had with weather and infrastructure and whatnot, so.
Okay.
But we will have, hopefully Mr. Collins will be at the next meeting, and we can have a date specified so you can attend.
Great, thank you.
Sir, Mayor Carroll?
Yes, Mr. Powers feels a little left out because he didn't get one of these cool binders. So I kept on saying, what binder are you talking about? And then I realized. So if you can make, if you can make sure. Yeah. Oh, you didn't, okay. And Mr. Anderson
I
needs
know.
one too.
We had anticipated that our new books, or the suggestions for our new books, would have happened by now, and the process has been a little lengthier. So at first I was a little bit, I was kind of thinking, should I even print out this entire book for everybody if it's only going to be for two weeks? But as it turned out, it's been longer. So I'll get you a binder.
What's the status on the anticipation of adjusting those?
I haven't talked to Will specifically on it. I believe it's done. It's just that how between himself and Mr. Collins, how we want to approach getting that information to this board and to the Board of Commissioners, because apparently it's a lot like it's gonna be like an 8-hour session or something. So I guess they're looking at whether we want to break it into a couple of workshops or what. And then once that happens, we'll have to vote on how we want to address those suggested changes, or what we want to take, what we don't want to take, so, yeah.
And then also, I want to encourage y'all, I didn't realize the industrial board meeting, Mr. Cowley, is that right? Is this Thursday?
It's basically a meet and greet this Thursday.
Okay. I would like to encourage y'all to go if you are available, just to attend, because if it's the state representatives for economic and development. Yeah.
There's 3 new people, 2 of them are gonna come.
Okay, great. So this will give you an opportunity to understand kind of some of the process and what they look for site-ready property and as far as development. So if you have an interest in that, normally they're very informative. It may not be that formal, but it might give you, if you want to look for other ways to get involved, being able to go after some of these businesses and get site ready, and have property that we can identify, then they can go out and promote and could bring jobs. So if you have an interest, I would encourage you to show up. And then also, just want to welcome all the new members. And also, I was going to ask you, Ms. Costanda, if you would give us any kind of training. I know we're going to do some in-house training, but as you get stuff, because it'll sneak up on us, any online or classes available, just for you can kind of at leisure choose some additional hours, because the standards have been raised recently on what's required. That would be probably a good idea, not to wait on the city if there's other opportunities. Also, just wanted to go for the record, those that have been on the Planning Commission for July and August, you should have received additional pay, and you didn't, and it was an oversight on the city. But the pay rate for planning commissioner members went from 100 to 200, depending on if you attended the meeting. Obviously, you don't get paid if you don't come. But I noticed, I went back and checked mine. I hadn't. It turned out nobody had received it. So if you are one of those members that served in those 2 months, you will get additional check deposited, or however you do your checks, from the city to catch us up. And then after that, everybody else, get your information in to Mr. Daugherty as far as how you want to receive your checks. And you should be receiving the 200, and then whatever taxes are taken out. So just to let everybody know, and that was just an oversight, but at least we caught it 2 months in versus a year or so. So, and I guess that's it. Any?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you guys for the raise. Thank you guys for the planning commissioner's guide. If you guys haven't had a chance to read this, definitely do. A lot of good education and information in there. And that's all I have for tonight. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right.
Second.
We're over.